All right, let's dive into something that, let's be honest, probably keeps a lot of us up at night. Career instability. We're going to talk about the three biggest threats to our livelihood and, way more importantly, how we can actually take back the reins.
I want you to just imagine for a second, your livelihood, your whole career, poof, vanished. I mean, you've poured everything into it, right? And then one day, it's just gone. It's a truly gut-wrenching thought, but it's exactly where we need to start to get a grip on what's happening out there. So, the source material we're looking at has a name for this stuff: employee emergencies. And look, we're not talking about a bad day at the office. These are the big ones, the kind of career-shaking events that can just flip your entire life upside down, and they tend to show up in a few specific ways.
Okay, so there are three main ones we're going to unpack. First up, you've got the sudden shock of losing your job. Then there's that constant nagging feeling of the pending axe, you know? And finally, the slow burn danger of burnout. So let's tackle that first one right now.
This is probably the one that scares people the most, right? Getting fired. But what if we could look at it differently? What if we could reframe it? What if, buried inside that awful crisis, there's actually a hidden opportunity? I've got a story here that shows this perfectly. Picture this. A guy named Michael gets a letter one afternoon, and it's just these cold, sterile words. After 8 years of dedicating himself to this company, that's it. No thanks for everything, no support, just this clinical, brutal end to a massive part of his life. Can you even imagine how that would feel? But this is where the story takes a turn, because when he was asked how he felt right in that moment, he didn't just say furious or crushed. He said it was a combination of rage and relief. And that word right there, relief, that's the key to this whole thing. And this just lays it out so clearly. You see the two sides of the coin here. On one side, you've got all the stuff you'd expect, right? The feeling of injustice, the humiliation, the hit to your self-worth. But then, look at the other side. That relief wasn't just a small thing. It was this massive weight off his shoulders. Freedom from all that soul-crushing bureaucracy. Freedom from a narcissistic boss. And get this, freedom from a commute that was so dangerous he literally hit a herd of cattle once. I'm not kidding. So here's the big takeaway. By shifting his focus to that relief column, Michael's entire perspective just flipped. What felt like this epic personal failure, he reframed it as a life-saving event. He didn't just lose a job. He might have literally saved his own life. Okay, so let's move on to the second emergency, because this all connects.
All right, and this next one is different. It's not that sudden lightning strike. It's more like a constant low hum of anxiety in the background. You know that feeling? The fear that your job is never really safe, that you're always on the chopping block? And the author we're drawing from, yeah, he went through this himself.
So get this, he just finishes leading this huge, successful project. He's probably feeling pretty good about himself. And then his manager pulls him aside and asks if he'd be interested in a redundancy package. I mean, can you believe that? And the reason? His resume was just too bland, too general. He was seen as a commodity, totally replaceable. And man, that question was a massive wake-up call.
So what do you do in that situation? Well, he basically hit a fork in the road. He could keep being this jack of all trades, a replaceable part, or he could become a master of one specific thing. And he chose mastery. He went all in on risk management. And by carving out that niche, by developing this super specialized, valuable skill, he made himself indispensable. He went from being just another employee to being a real strategic asset.
And this really gets at a powerful idea, something the author calls Einstein's rule. The whole point isn't just to be successful or climb the ladder. It's about being valuable, to provide a unique value that others can't. Because that's your real job security, not the company you work for, but the value you bring to the table. Okay, our third emergency is a really tricky one. It's insidious, because on the surface, it looks like you're doing everything right. You're working hard, you're dedicated, you're putting in the hours. But it comes with a price, a really, really serious one that can wreck your health and even your life. And this leads to a pretty terrifying concept from Japan. It's a word called karoshi, and it literally translates to death by overwork. And I want to be super clear here. This isn't just about feeling a little tired or stressed out. This is a recognized medical phenomenon where people actually die, from heart attacks, from strokes, from suicide, all brought on by insane work demands. Let me tell you about Bethany. She's working at this high-powered, prestigious firm, pull in 12, 14-hour days like it's normal, and then her body starts screaming for help. We're talking daily nosebleeds in the morning, feeling so lightheaded she'd almost fall over. I mean, these aren't just little signs of stress. These are symptoms of a body that is actively breaking down.
And that was her aha moment, her breaking point. She realized this path she was on wasn't just unsustainable, it was flat out dangerous. She knew that if she kept going, something terrible was going to happen. So she made a choice. She chose to reclaim her life, and she walked away from that job to find one that would actually protect her well-being.
Okay, so we've walked through the 3 big emergencies: job loss, the pending acts, and burnout. The big question now is, what do we do about it? How do we escape this? Well, the answer really comes down to a fundamental shift in how we think about our careers.
Look, we need to get real about something. A harsh reality, as the source puts it. Your employer, they are focused on hitting their targets, on their bottom line. They are not focused on protecting your life needs. That's just not their job. And you know what? Accepting that isn't being negative or cynical. It's actually incredibly empowering.
And that brings us right to the main point, the single most important takeaway that changes the whole game. The person responsible for your career is you. It's not your boss, it's not the company, it's you. Real lasting security doesn't come from an employer. It comes from having your own plan, always. A plan to keep building your value, a plan to keep an eye out for those warning signs, and a plan for whatever comes next.
And this just lays out the 2 choices so perfectly. You've got path 1. Wait for the avalanche. That's the default mode, right? Just reacting to a crisis after it's already buried you. But then there's path 2. Notice the snowflakes. This is about being proactive. It's about paying attention to those tiny little warning signs, a toxic culture, a shift in your industry. It means you stop waiting for some company to give you security and you start building it for yourself. Not with loyalty, but with the unique, undeniable value that only you can provide. So that really leaves us with one last big question. And it's one you have to ask yourself. Are you just an employee, kind of letting your fate be decided by others? Or are you the designer of your career? Are you the one in the driver's seat, taking control of the path ahead? Because at the end of the day, that choice is entirely up to you.